the city is alive with activity.
Hi, I'm Dave Evans, and welcome to $9.99.
NYC Media knows everything about the city, and now you can take us with you everywhere you go. Our new iPhone app has tons of information about places to eat, things to do, and much more. Download the NYC Media app from iTunes and discover New York.
This week from New York Times TV, a publishing entrepreneur uses his unusual past as the basis for his success. Food reporter Mark Bittman makes his own healthy granola. Movie critic A.O. Scott reviews a classy Hollywood couple. And the City Critic Ariel Kaminer pursues lost property on the subway with surprising results. These stories and more from the New York Times.
Hi, I'm Ariel Kaminer from the New York Times City Critic. You know that sensation when you reach for your bag and you realize that you left it on the subway, and at that exact second you hear the ping and the doors close and the subway's gone? It is a bad sensation, but it's not necessarily the end of the world. The MTA does run an extensive lost property operation here in Penn Station. Let's go check it out.
Now, this is one of the cases where someone turned in a $100 bill. In fact, this was turned in by an unknown female passenger.
So a passenger was on the F train, and they looked down, and what do they find? A $100 bill.
Right, and they turned it in.
And their first thought is, I gotta hand this over.
Yes.
Here's a lizard skin clutch, which is well accessorized with a Hello Kitty umbrella.
Everything here, we've notified the customer.
Now, this is some child's schoolwork.
Exactly.
Brian McLeod, where are you? Here's how it works. You leave your cell phone on the subway or bus. A good citizen turns it in to the booth or an MTA employee. All the items are taken to the dispatcher's office, where they are put in a special property bag and locked with a padlock. The Department of Revenue then picks up the bags and safely delivers them to the lost property unit. There, they're opened, and each item is logged into a database and put into storage, where they wait patiently for you to claim them. As an experiment, I took the precaution of losing a few items at subway stations around the 5 boroughs over the last 10 days. I lost a Star Wars children's umbrella, just like this, a Statue of Liberty foam head, something like that, a bolt of blue cloth, and possibly the largest pair of bright red women's underwear ever made. And then I went online and I tracked them through the MTA's lost property tracking system. Does this job make you feel better about New Yorkers than other people do?
It really has, you know, and we believe that New Yorkers aren't honest people, but they really are. You know, and it's just amazing some of the things that they turn in. What's the trumpet?
Look at that.
This is an item we were not able to notify the customer. Very nice trumpet.
I must say, I'm kind of impressed by the operation down there. I was sort of expecting that it would just be like a big cardboard box piled with a lot of junk, but instead it's something a little closer to the Dewey Decimal System. As for my stuff, well, 10 days later, it hasn't turned up yet. Somebody did find a bunch of bras on one of the city buses, so if that's yours, come claim your reward. As for me, I was advised they could still turn up at any time, so I'll just keep looking.
Up next, reporters Matthew Orr and Andreas Otero remember the dark days of Times Square.
In the 70s and 80s, Times Square was a pretty dicey place. 42nd Street was a zoo of the most highly articulated, different kind of weirdos imaginable.
This was a place for drug dealers, there were sex shops and peep shows and runaway kids. It was called The Deuce.
This is the story of the rejuvenation of Times Square. It's taken an agonizingly long 30 years. At the same time, when it finally did happen, it happened amazingly quickly.
So I was the president of the 42nd Street Development Project, which is a state-owned subsidiary that redeveloped this street. I was president from 1990 to 1997, and it was during this time that this incredible transformation of 42nd Street happened. In the 70s and 80s, 42nd Street was really sleazy, and so there were drug dealers, there were peep shows, sex places. In, I think it was 1982, Rolling Stone magazine named this block the sleaziest block in America.
Times Square had sort of fallen into decay and disrepair throughout the 60s and 70s. At the height of the downturn for Times Square, you had a movie like Taxi Driver, which illustrated just how risky, how dangerous, and perhaps how exciting Times Square could be in that period.
All the animals come out at night.
To me, Times Square in 1980 was the sort of one of the kind of loci of street culture in New York City. My wife Jane and I moved to Times Square, specifically 43rd Street and 8th Avenue in 1980. And when I moved there, I was developing a movie which was later called Wild Style. And in the mid-'80s, my son was born, and I went and got myself a little handy-cam video camera and was shooting his birthdays, but also drawn to the window every time I would hear something going on, like transvestites arguing under my window, fighting with police. It's a kind of real diary of 4 years in Times Square. There's a couple scenes like some shots thrown and a guy goes blacked out right on the concrete in the middle of 8th Avenue and 43rd Street. We're really looking at a drug deal gone bad and who's there trying to like find the guy's drugs, and you know, for 2 minutes the camera's running and there's no idea of any sort of one in control of Times Square.
In 1980, the state and the city said, okay, we're going to revitalize Times Square. And promptly, things moved very slowly.
The big thing that happened was Prudential Life Insurance of America put up $241 million to build the project and allowed us to condemn this property. So all of this, 13 acres, was taken by the state.
Along about 1990, they finally took possession of all the land, and the developer was required to start building the first of 4 skyscrapers right in the center of Times Square. But the economy was horrible. We were in the middle of a steep recession, and they didn't want to start building a building that nobody was going to occupy. Originally, they wanted to put 4 office towers right smack in the middle of Times Square that resembled really suburban office towers.
We didn't want to do that. We wanted to make it into the chaotic, popular, overcrowded, 24/7 layered place that it had been in its heyday. And we were allowed to redo the plan, but we had to find real tenants. So we sent out letters to 800 big entertainment companies, small entertainment companies, not-for-profits, and then we found Disney.
Disney was very important because it became sort of the flypaper for other entertainment companies that would be interested in Times Square.
It was a hard decision for them because the street was still really sleazy by the time they agreed to sign up. But we had the best Broadway theater in New York, in the New Amsterdam Theater, and they signed on.
It's Disney that brought Madame Tussauds, that brought AMC Theaters, and other companies sort of sat up and take notice for the first time that there was something happening here.
And that just turned it around. I mean, I think the public's perception that this place could really revive itself just changed.
Times Square today is a funny place. In a way, it's a victim of its success. There are so many tourists and so many office workers in town now that it's very hard in the middle of the day to walk through Times Square.
Who doesn't want Times Square crowded? You don't want it to be just a place for, drug addicts. You want the place to be packed. It's the showcase of the planet. It's beautiful to me. I think it's fantastic. And I don't knock Times Square and say, oh, it was so great in the 70s. I mean, I like the fact that it's, a big corporate wasteland of entertainment.
From the New York section, the success story of Randy Kearse, a former prisoner turned publisher.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, before you start to panic, I'm not begging, borrowing, asking for your food. I don't represent the homeless. I'm not selling candy or bootleg DVDs. I'm a writer.
Randy Kearse spent 13 years, 6 months, and 2 days in federal prison. He went in as a cocaine dealer, but left as something much more. He credits that time with steering his life clear of his old ways and sparking the seeds for his new path as a writer and motivational speaker.
I had a brother who was just had been incarcerated a year before I got out. So when I started writing the book, Changing Your Game Plan, which I'm really most recognized for, it was really born out of me trying to encourage him on how to do time productively, positively. But then as I got into the project, I realized that, you have so many people incarcerated. You have so many people that have been incarcerated. You have so many people that might be heading to incarceration. So why not give the lessons that I've learned to a wider audience? This book is about overcoming adversity and the challenge to change, how I took that situation, turned it around. Now I own my own publishing company. The same work ethics that I had when I was on the street selling and hustling and moving illegal narcotics is the same work ethics that I have now. I get up early, out in the street, I'm hustling, I'm interacting with people, I'm making the connections to people that can help me expand my marketing and everything like that. So it's a direct correlation. Good day feels when I can get on that train and sell 35 books in 4 hours. I got the energy and my spirit is on, and people really, even if they're not buying the books, they're acknowledging me, they're wishing me well, and that's really what a good day is. I've lost a brother, you know what I'm saying? I lost my best friend and his wife. They were found murdered, shot to death, tied up, execution style. There's been so many different instances where my life was on the line and my life was in jeopardy, and me not even realizing my life was in jeopardy. Ladies and gentlemen, I've sold over 14,000 copies of this one book by myself on the streets of New York all the way down to DC. That tells you two things. I have a hell of a book, or I'm a hell of a salesman. I don't know, ladies and gentlemen, you have to decide. There's no greater feeling in the world than when somebody comes up to you while you're on the train or you're walking the street and tell me that they've read my book and how my book impacted their life.
And now, the minimalist Mark Bittman makes granola even healthier.
Big Food has spent tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars trying to convince you that granola bars are health food. They're not. They're roughly the same as a candy bar. But today, I'm going to show you how to make a granola bar that's actually good for you. We've got almond butter, honey, granola, chopped almonds, Rice Krispies. I'm using brown Rice Krispies, which you can find in most supermarkets these days, and chopped apricots. Watch this come together. It's like a miracle. So you melt together the almond butter and the honey. And just heat that fairly low heat until it's softened up and liquid. You'll know when. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, granola, chopped almonds, Rice Krispies, chopped apricots. Mix this up. This is the glue that holds everything together. We'll prepare our pan. a little bit of oil on the bottom. It can be any oil. A layer of plastic wrap. That goes in here. Now mix that up. Kind of like Rice Krispie treats, but again, not total junk. And that goes into our plastic wrap pan. So spread that so that it's about an even layer. Cover it with another piece of plastic. Now you can leave these on the counter until they are nice and hard, or you can cook them in the refrigerator at about 40 degrees for an hour or overnight, whatever. You pull the whole thing out in one beautiful piece. And you won't be eating junk food. You know, we should go into business. You and me.
A.O. Scott remembers the style of Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers.
Don't these people know we're in the middle of a depression? Of course they do. Top Hat, starring Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, epitomizes Hollywood's remarkable ability to confront misery with good cheer. It's the fourth of the 10 collaborations between these two stars, and one of their lightest and most joyful.
When a clumsy cloud meets a fluffy little cloud.
Astaire plays Jerry Travers, an American who lands in Europe. Is he there on business or on pleasure? It's hard to say, and it's not clear really what the difference would be. But one thing is clear: he is there to dance. Now, not everyone is delighted and entertained, at least not at first. Ginger Rogers plays Dale Tremont, who's downstairs in the midst of this barrage of tapping and who registers a complaint with the hotel management. And then she falls in love with Jerry. Peekaboo. But of course it's not that simple. On the way to true love, there are hilarious complications and obstacles. There's a case of mistaken identity. There's a high-strung Italian dressmaker.
I am no man. I am Bedini.
There's a philandering American husband and his cynical wife. And there's a butler.
Possibly we had been a little imprudent.
The dialogue is as fizzy and dry as fine champagne. The clothes are impeccable, Astaire's tie and tails, and especially Ginger Rogers' gowns and even her pajamas. But what would you expect? This is a movie that takes its name from a hat. Top Hat glides from London to Venice, but really, it never leaves the soundstage. But this is part of the movie's charm. It doesn't take place in the real Europe of 1935, which was shadowed by war and fascism and economic disaster. It takes place in a dream world full of highballs, elegant hotel suites, lavish floral arrangements, and the unforgettable songs of Irving Berlin. Now, it's not that these songs provide a soundtrack, it's more that they capture just what it is that this movie is about. It's amazing that something so completely artificial should feel so authentic. And the secret to this is in the dancing. Jerry and Dale have to navigate through a maze of mistaken identities and confusions, but once they're on the floor, on the dance floor, moving together, their true identities come into blossom, and we are transported into a realm of absolute joy.
Next, Frank Bruni's Tipsy Diaries takes on the latest in improvised mixology.
We're here at the Tribeca Cocktail Lounge, Ward 3, where one of the special things they do is what they call bespoke cocktails. You choose the qualities, the fruits, the spices, whatever, from this bespoke list, and they make that drink to your specification. We're going to ask the three owners of Ward 3, Abdul, Kenneth, and Michael, to make us a drink based on 4 characteristics: gin, cardamom, peach, and I want it to be spirit forward. He's already off. You started out with a cardamom.
Yes. I'm muddling the peach and the cardamom.
Okay.
So what you're doing is you're releasing any oils.
Looks like a little person's baseball bat. Well,
it is, yeah. I'm going to put a little Amaro in there.
Okay.
It's very herbaceous.
All right.
And ice cubes.
Right.
A little bit of Royal Combier, which is a orange liqueur.
So you are adding some orange flavor to our peach profile. What's the theory behind that?
I like mixing oranges and peaches because I think they bring out the best of each other.
Okay.
Also, what I'm going to do as well.
How sweet! Ooh, what's going on now? See, now you're just showing off.
Give it a go.
It's really good. It's sweeter than my preferred drink, but I gave you some parameters you had to work with. You came up with a drink that is totally drinkable. You're going already. I like you guys. You guys are quick. All right, we begin with the cardamom.
Yep, you peel the cardamom, so you get the seeds down.
Okay.
Peaches.
And now we got peaches. And we're muddling.
Lime juice.
Lime juice.
Yep.
And now what?
A little honey water.
Honey water.
Yep, lemon gin. It's my favorite gin.
And why are you going like that with the glass other than the Tom Cruise in cocktail-like theater of it all?
It's a heartbeat.
All right. Now, because you have aggression left over from the muddling, you're doing that. Okay. So is this a cocktail for me or is it therapy for Abdul?
Both. Get 1 ice cube.
Now, why the little shaking as you're pouring? You've done time with the circus, haven't you?
The orange zest.
Orange zest. Very straightforward.
The meat of the cardamom is actually in there, so you have to.
The meat of the cardamom?
Yeah, you can see it's they look like little white balls.
So you've made a lot of noise, but are you making anything worth drinking is the question.
Well, we'll see, we'll see.
Now the peaches.
This is Cochi Americano, which is kind of like Lillet. It's fortified white wine.
Okay.
I'll put Beefeater, which is a classic London dry gin.
So now, whoa. We're mixing 2 different gins. Are you keeping track of this?
Yeah.
Because I'd like to write this down at some point, provided it's good, but I'm getting more doubtful by the by the stroke. Should I call the fire department? One of the funny things about all those steps is at the end of it, we've got something that doesn't taste entirely unlike a spiked orange juice. You hate me right now.
No, I don't hate you.
You can hit me. You just can't light the match again.
Finally, another happy couple takes the plunge in this edition of Vows.
Chad and I met on our way to Afghanistan.
It was my second deployment to Afghanistan, Ramona's first.
We were at Manas Air Base in Kyrgyzstan, and it was my job to push everyone through to Afghanistan, make sure the transition was smooth.
I was sitting in the back of the room and I noticed her and it flashed through my head. I was like, I'm gonna marry this woman. I stopped myself right away and I'm like, what do you mean you're gonna marry this woman? That's crazy, you know what I mean?
So we actually flew down to Bagram together. We were on the same flight, and then we, ended up at our final destination in Jalalabad together.
We were sitting on top of our duffel bags waiting for our C-130, and she asked me if I wanted any craisins. And she told me that she said they were good for my prostate.
When I first met him, I definitely thought he was cute. I sort of wondered about him, like I wonder if he's married, I wonder if he has a girlfriend. But it was still, there were so many other things going on. If you had told me that I was going to meet the one in Afghanistan, I would have laughed in your face. I thought, how can you even get to know someone when, what we're talking about with General Order Number 1, you can't have any physical contact with a member of the opposite sex. You can't be in the same room as them if it's just the two of you, like in, like your bee hut where you spend the night, where you sleep and everything. So there was, to me, it was totally unfeasible.
Obviously, there was no physical interaction. It was against the rules. We would go on walks whenever we could steal a moment.
It was the day after my birthday, and my friends had made a big deal about my birthday. You know, we're downrange in Afghanistan, let's do something. On Saturdays, there was always a bazaar that, you know, the local Afghans brought their rugs and their semi-precious stones and everything. And so I was walking back from lunch, and Chad, you know, stopped me and he asked if I wanted to go down to the bazaar with him. So, you know, we took our weapons and, you know, walked across the airfield. It was, you know, 140 degrees outside. It was just sweltering heat. And that was our first date. You know, we went on our post-deployment block leave. So for 30 days, we came back home, we were in the States. When we got back, it was like, okay, now we're real people in real life, in civilization. We can do real things. We can go out to dinner, we can go shopping, we can sit on the couch together and watch television, we can do laundry. You know, we got to know each other as real people and not just people in the Army. Before I knew it, I was deploying again.
I didn't want her to go on deployment without letting her know how I truly felt about her.
He proposed to me right before, just a few days before I flew to Afghanistan.
I thought it was a perfect opportunity. We walked up to the top of the hill.
We live in a town called Parkstein, and it's a basalt kegel, they say in German, and all the way on the top is a little chapel. So we walked up there and Chad proposed. You know, you can see this gorgeous 360 panoramic view of the countryside. So it was meaningful, and it was great, and I said yes right away.